Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome back. Another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon, fresh off the heels of UFC 296 from Las Vegas, Nevada. Leon Edwards reigns supreme. Pantoja uses another well-rounded approach to his first title defense. Dana White calls for the retirement of Tony Ferguson. Kind of agree. Bryce Mitchell gets absolutely flatlined in a very scary knockout by Josh Emmett. Dricus, Strickland, they make headlines. I don't know if it's the best headlines, but hey, we're fight fans, so it might be the best headlines. I'm not sure. Tell me, break it all down. He was in attendance there on Saturday night, as well as he was in Atlantic City the night before covering CFFC with our boy CM Punk. You can follow him on Twitter, John Morgan _MMA. He is John Morgan from a nice hotel room, I see.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me just apologize off the top. All that little travel and the back-to-back, I think it cost me. I'm a little sick right now, so my voice, if it's annoying, I apologize. I'm powering through. I'm doing the best I can, but I'm doing the best I can from the Fountain Blue in Las Vegas, man. This brand new multi-billion-dollar facility just opened this week here in Las Vegas, and I said, you know what? I'm home for just a couple of days. I got to get back on the road for CFFC match day. Let me take the family out to a little staycation. We hung out, pretended like we were big wigs last night, rolling around the Fountain Blue and had a good time. So anyway, it's all fun and we're putting in the grind, but there's nothing I'd be rather doing. But I apologize to everybody off the top. If you find my voice annoying, I'm going to do the best I can.
All righty. We're going to speed through today's episode because John is wheeling and dealing, high profile, styling and profiling. So we're going to get through this lowly MMA talk quickly. But Leon Edwards improves to 22-3 with a 29-26 across the board unanimous decision victory over Colby Covington, who now falls to 17-4. Now, right off the bat, we're going to talk about how good Leon Edwards is. And it's unfortunate that not a lot of people are talking about that. And the headlines are dominated by the Colby that we saw in the cage on Saturday night. Vintage un-Colby.
Yeah, it's a shame, right? Because it is. But I mean, it really is the most puzzling part of the fight, right? Is just, you and I were kind of on opposite sides of how we thought this fight was going to play out. But I cannot imagine. You can't find me one person who said, you know what I think is going to happen is Colby Covington's not really going to shoot any takedowns. He's going to look to keep the fight on the feet. He's going to be a little slow out there. He's not really going to push the pace. You can't tell me anybody saw that it was going to play out the way that it played out. So it is unfortunate that that's the big talking point is what was Colby Covington doing? Why did he fight the way he fought? What is going on with the issue? Instead of talking about Leon, because Leon Edwards had struggled, right, to get respect, to get attention, to get buzz built around him. And I don't think this fight did it. You know what I mean? I just don't think this fight did it. I don't think people are clamoring to see exactly what next. And it's a shame because he is a great champion. He's a great person. He conducted himself in a fantastic manner in what had to be a very, very frustrating and emotional fight week for him. But it just was puzzling. I mean, as that fight was playing out, I'm sitting there cage side going, what is going on? Is this some kind of tactical adjustment from Colby Covington? Is this some kind of strategy from Colby Covington? At the end of the day, it just didn't feel that way. It just felt like a guy that was kind of flat, to be honest with you.
Now, what do we make of this fight? You said kind of flat, 2-year layoff. We know the statistics of title challengers over the age of 35. Is that a lot of it? Or is Leon that damn good?
That's an interesting point, right? Because Colby Covington came back to the post-fight press conference, and Colby did say, look, I'll give myself about a 5 out of 10. He's like, I won't make excuses. But then he did say, you know what? I didn't expect Leon to be an orthodox stance as much as he was. And he did say, look, the time away kind of affected me a little bit. I didn't expect him to be an orthodox stance. I expected him to be in southpaw, so that threw off, kind of how I was going to shoot in. Which, I mean, that does. I mean, obviously, you're a grappler. You're a black belt. I mean, you spend a lot of time. You understand when guys switch stances, you're used to grabbing one leg instead of the other. That can have some impact. But, what's the game of Colby Covington? It's not really necessarily shooting on a leg from range. It's normally like punching his way into the clinch, pressing you against the cage and driving you there. And he just didn't do any of that. So I think there's more questions than there are answers, to be honest with you. Is it the fact that, he's no longer with American Top Team? I mean, that's been for a while. Was it the layoff? Was it the fact that he is just older now and that there comes a time and every fighter's like, it's crazy, right? Because it happens in one fight, it seems like. One night you show up and you just don't have it anymore. You just don't have that. Now, he's only 35, so I'm not trying to say the guy's done, he's washed up, but like, is there something in that he doesn't have that aggressiveness in him anymore? He doesn't have that energy in him anymore. I don't know. And I think that's why there is so much discussion about this now, because I really do feel like we walked away from that fight with more questions than we got answers.
All these little things keep going into my head when I'm really looking at it. Now, if we go back to last week, I said, hey, listen, Colby's going to be Colby. I don't care what anybody's in front of. You could put King Kong in front of him. He's going to be Colby. He's going to go forward, and he's going to be relentless. He's just going to be relentless.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to Kamaru Usman's interviews, he goes, Colby's not going to stop because Leon hit him. He's going to come after him and shoot and reshoot and get it and then eventually get it. But is it going to be enough? That was the question that Kamaru even had. We saw none of that. Right. And so all these things keep going into my head. Is it the time off? Is it the age? Is it the team change? Is it just, he didn't have it that night, which is a real thing. Sometimes you're just flat that night. But I want to keep on going back. And I don't know why this always sticks in my head is like, we have a 2-year layoff, but it's not an average 2-year layoff, right? The 2-year layoff is coming off of the, I guess it's not even alleged at this point because it was admitted by Masvidal, the assault that Masvidal outside of the steakhouse on Colby Covington. Colby Covington presses charges, and there's some civil lawsuits out there claiming brain injury. So over this course of this 2 years, something had to have been settled in there for him to get back in the cage. So it doesn't look good that you're training and doing all these things while claiming you have a brain injury. So if I were to put all these and add everything into the equation, mix it up, I'm going to say out of this year and a half out of the cage, he was not in the gym, or out of these 2 years out of the cage, he was not in the training room at least a year and a half of that.
That's a great point, and I hadn't really considered it until you thought about it, but as you started lining out, it really does make sense. I used to be, I used to have a good relationship with Colby Covington. We don't anymore just because of, I don't even know why, but I mean, it's been pretty well documented. So I don't really stay in touch with his people to get that kind of information. But you're 100% right. Like if you have pending litigation that, it has impacted my career, that I have a brain injury, that I can't compete because of you, it would not look good if a personal, private investigator on the other side was able to go into your gym and showcase footage of you training in mixed martial arts on a daily basis. You're going to take that back to the legal team, and you're going to say, look at this. I mean, how has it impacted his life at all? He's in there. So I bet you're 100% right. And I wish I could verify that. As a reporter, I don't like to make assumptions, but I think the case that you just laid out is probably one that you can actually pretty safely assume that it wasn't, necessarily the same training routines had, because like you said, layoffs are layoffs of different kinds, right? There's a layoff where like, well, I just couldn't get a fight book, but I was in the gym all day, every day. I was sparring every week. I was getting the rounds in. And then there's layoffs where like, yeah, my leg was broken. And so I had to stay, I was having ligament damage. I was out of the gym for 9 months because, look at what's crazy about this. And think about this, right? Colby's best round was the 5th round, right? So it's not as if like he was fading or he had no energy or he wasn't there. His best round was late. That's when he was most effective. So maybe it really was the timing wasn't there. It just didn't feel right. The type of stuff that you would associate with not being in the gym, not getting the repetitions, and not getting the time in. So I think you laid out a pretty good scenario of probably what was happening behind the scenes.
And did you give him the 5th round? Watching
Yes.
it, I gave him 4 and 5, 4 razor thin. I know it was. I know all the judges only gave him 1 round. I personally gave him 4 and 5, just out of control. But to your point, man, you're right. He 4 and 5. He looked somewhat like Colby Covington. 1, 2, and 3. Let's go back to 1. Me and you talked before we started recording, like, is he downloading? Is he seeing what Leon has? And then first minute into round 2, I said, this fight's over. He didn't take any of that information and move it forward.
Yeah, I'm the same way as you, man. I did give him only the 5th round, but it's exactly that. The first round came out, and I thought, what? Okay, this is not Colby. But then I thought, okay, well, hold on. We know Colby. We have all the tape in the world on Colby. We know exactly how he fights. Maybe Colby is doing something different to throw Leon off a little bit, right? Like, hey, Leon, you think you know what I'm going to do, but guess what? I'm patient. I'm studying. I'm downloading. I want you to come to me. I'm going to force you as the champion to come out of your shell a little bit and press me. So I thought, okay, maybe that's what we saw in round one. But then when he comes out in round two, I'm exactly the way you saw it, man. That opening minute, he kept doing the same thing. I said, oh, he doesn't even have a chance. And, 3 rounds in, it's 3 rounds to none. And at that point, you're saying, okay, I mean, it was inarguably 3-0 Leon Edwards. And at that point, you're going, hold on, Colby Covington needs to finish this fight over the final 10 minutes to win this. And none of us ever thought he was going to finish the fight, right? Like, I think we all thought if Colby Covington wins this fight, it's going to be because he outworks Leon Edwards over the course of 5 rounds and takes home a decision. And when he's already down 3 rounds to none, that's an impossibility. And I didn't even give him the 4th, but it was competitive. I thought it was closer, so I don't begrudge you for giving him that. But yeah, man, he just got started too late, man. He got started too late. And again, it leaves you scratching your head because where does he go from here? I mean, I know he walked away and immediately starts calling out Wonder Boy, and maybe that fight makes sense. Another guy that you don't necessarily know who
does not
next.
make sense, John Morgan.
Only in terms of like they're 2 veterans of the game, and you don't know who else to match them up with. In terms of like, look, maybe my memory's not always the best, but when he came to the post-fight press conference and said Wonder Boy's been talking trash, I was like, hold on. I don't think Wonder Boy talks trash about anybody. It kind of gave me shades of when he came after me in the press conference where he was like, hold on, John Morgan, you were saying I don't deserve a title shot. And I'm like, I've never said that about anybody, much less you. Like, I don't grant title shots. If the UFC does, you deserve it. So I think he was just making stuff up. I don't ever remember Wonder Boy talking. So it doesn't make sense, but at least it's 2 guys that are veterans and their names that we know, and they can be in headlining spots.
I have no ambition to see that fight, but let's go back to the fight.
Yeah.
Let's go. Like, listen, Colby's trying to take that stain off right away. I get it, right? I get it. He's trying to remove that stain. And granted, I'm still a Colby Covington fan. I think he lost a lot of fans this weekend. Okay. But I want to go back to the fight. And what's most shocking to me is I don't care what anybody says. Leon Edwards out-grappled Colby Covington.
He did. And it was funny because it felt like it was kind of just to prove a point. You know what I mean? Like, he took me down. Now I'm going to take him down.
To prove a point.
Yeah.
Not kind of.
Not like, I asked him afterwards and he said, no, that was kind of always in our game plan. We knew we were going to. I was like, no, you didn't. Like, he took you down and like, I'm going to take him down too. I'm going to show him. But I think Leon did show, how good his defensive grappling is. Look, I did get a little bit worried late in round 5 because he did a really good job. You notice, obviously the grappling aficionado that you are, you notice it. He did a great job of keeping his back to the fence so that Colby couldn't do the back take. He did a great job of, even when it was kind of well out of position, just digging the underhook, even if it was behind him, just to make sure you're not getting to my back. So he did a great job of preventing the back take, even when it was, in its worst. But, he showed grappling. He won every aspect of this fight, man. Leon Edwards won every aspect of this fight, other than, I don't think this is one of those that people are walking away going, you talk about Colby probably lost some fans. I don't know that Leon necessarily gained a bunch of fans. I don't know that people nearly like, oh, that's my guy now. But it was, it was a crazy week. It was an emotional week, and Leon had to be very disciplined not to get sucked into all that, right? Because listen, man, trash talk is trash talk and it's fun. But I personally believe there's limits to it. And I don't think talking about somebody's father is necessarily something that's warranted out there. So this was a tough fight for Leon Edwards, but he won every aspect of the game.
He did. It was an utterly impressive performance. And, with Colby Covington, I always hate to keep going back. To Colby Covington because it was just like that stole the shine from Leon Edwards. And Colby Covington not moving forward made me and my analysis of my preview of this fight look kind of foolish. But, with all that being said, Colby, it shows now that where the hierarchy of this division is. And it's clear to me now, the hierarchy of this division, unfortunately, because I'm a huge fan, does not have Colby Covington in it. It is clearly Leon Edwards, Rakhmonov, and Belal Muhammad. Clearly. Yeah. And then if we even want to put Brady up into that mix, but he was outclassed by Muhammad, I think that's a great fight to make. Brady and Covington. You want to talk about a fight to make? That's the fight to make, not a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. We'll get into that later. You know what? So what next for Leon Edwards? He used his space. He used his distance. He used everything masterfully, which now sets up, he is the clear number 1 in the division. If there was any questions, there's no more questions now. What next? Is it Belal Muhammad or is it Rakhmonov? Now, Rakhmonov does have an injury he's dealing with. So put that out there.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting scenario, right? Because, Belal Muhammad was the backup. As you said, he's on a 9-fight win streak. The guy is clearly the number one contender in the division right now. But he's another guy that maybe because he doesn't get the amount of finishes that people like to see, that maybe isn't necessarily as popular, right? Shavkat Rakhmonov, 18-0, 18 finishes. He's got the hat. I guess that's a thing. You know what I mean? He's got the hat. People like that. He's got some marketability, right? Which is weird, right? Because he doesn't speak the language, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's weird that he's more marketable, even though he has to use a translator for everything, than Belal Muhammad, who's hilarious on social media, who's out there on the internet, who has a podcast,
major shit,
is hilarious, right? I love Belal Muhammad, so it's interesting because to me, I think Belal Muhammad is next. I mean, he weighed in as the backup, so now granted, that's not always a guarantee that you're next, but at least shows that they warranted you worthy of being in a title shot if you were there to serve as a backup. He did that. He does have a history with Leon Edwards, right? They did fight before. It was a fight that ended in a no contest, so they have some history. There's a little bit of a storyline. You'll remember Belal Muhammad was adamant after that, like, I want that rematch right now, and Leon was like, I don't know, man. I think I was already beating you anyway before the nasty eye poke. Like, let's just move on. And so what has Belal done? Well, he's just done nothing but beat Damian Maia, Stephen Thompson, Vicente Luque, Sean Brady, and Gilbert Burns. I mean, what a lineup of killers that is. So Belal Muhammad, to me, is the absolute number one contender. But I asked Dana White afterwards, and I was like, clearly he's next, right? And Dana was like, well, I don't know. I'm not ready to make that decision right now. I asked Leon Edwards afterwards, like, Dana wasn't sure, but to you, is this a fight you need? And Leon's like, I don't know. Maybe it's one we do. So it looks like they're not trying to necessarily give him the fight right away, but you touched on it, right? Shavkat Rakhmonov, well documented afterwards, beats Wonderboy Thompson on the main card here, submission, keeps that perfect win streak going. And then we find out afterwards, nasty ankle issue, considered pulling out of the fight, didn't pull out of the fight, adjusted everything. But how does that impact? I'm going to tell you right now, I think that injury helps Belal Muhammad a lot, man, because it feels to me like the UFC and Leon Edwards were trying to shy away from Belal Muhammad, and we're trying to lean in to Shavkat, and let's bring in this undefeated 18 wins, 18 finishes, has a market behind him, and whatever. I mean, it just felt that way. I can tell you in the press room, like we were talking to other reporters and stuff, it felt like they're not going to give this to Belal, are they? They're going to give it to Shavkat. But I think the UFC and Leon may have their hands forced, because if it looks like it's going to need surgery, which it certainly seems like, then the time away is going to be a very beneficial thing for Belal Muhammad.
Why is Muhammad getting passed over? Is it just because he does not finish fights? Is that the reason? Because if you're going to ask me, I love watching just excellence in work, whether you're getting a finish or not. But I know I'm not the common fan. I'm not the one that puts a good great. I'm going to order. When are they going to that common fan right now? And is it just because Belal does not finish fights? I mean, is it as simple as that?
I think so. I mean, look, I'm a big Belal Muhammad fan. I actually got to commentate his last fight before he made it into the UFC. It was a Titan FC fight, so I got to see him on the regional stage, and I saw his relentless effort, his grind, the fact that he wouldn't go away. I love his personality, man. As you said, he talks trash, but like in a fun way, you know what I mean? Not like in a bad way. Like, he doesn't cuss, so he finds clever ways to say things and do things. And he talks trash, and he posts memes, and he's not afraid, you know what I mean? He's a good dude. So I like it. But I do think I've just noticed it from the casual fan, and you hit the nail on the head there, right? Because there's this built-in core fan base that's going to be there regardless, right? Like, we're going to be the ones that buy it. It's like the baseline number. We're going to buy every pay-per-view. We're going to watch every fight night. We're going to be there. But the real financial success comes when you get the people that aren't normally fight fans to buy in, to be interested, to be intrigued. But that's what intrigues me about this, is because I do feel like Shavkat has like this hardcore, passionate fan base. Certainly in his homeland of Kazakhstan, like, it's crazy. I mean, the people talk about the social media impact that he has, all that, but Kazakhstan also isn't a big pay-per-view buyer. Like, they just get the fight. So it's a weird one to me, because I do feel like there's more buzz around Shavkat because of the perfect record, because of the perfect finishes. And I'm sure you put the UFC machine, marketing machine fully behind him, that message is going to get out. I mean, that is special, right? Let's be honest. I mean, Eric, 18-0, 18 finishes. Like, I don't care who you're fighting. I don't care what level of competition. Like, that is incredibly impressive. But I don't know. But look, I'll say it again. Belal Muhammad beat Gilbert Burns, Sean Brady, Vicente Luque, Stephen Thompson, and Damian Maia in a row. I mean, that's insane. How do you beat that stretch of people and not get a title shot? It doesn't make any sense. So, look, Shavkat's going to get his title shot. And look, why can't Belal be first and Shavkat be next? Like, I think that's the way it should work out. You know what I mean?
Agree.
So I hope that's the way they go.
Let's look at it this way, Mr. John Morgan. We know that when websites or whatever, when they put some Eastern Europeans in there, what does it generate?
It generates that hacker traffic, bro. They get traffic, man. Those countries swarm. They swarm.
Eastern European, Rakhmonov, so who knows? If you're going to ask me, yeah, Belal Muhammad, absolutely deserving. Whether he finishes fights or not, that's irrelevant to me personally, because I like I said, I like watching excellence in action. Everything he does is just so good. And for him to dominate a guy in Brady, who then what we just saw him do to Calvin Gastelum, you can take all those other fights that you just rattled off and throw them to the side. That's all I needed to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, and again, I'll say it again, there's history as well. Like, what is the UFC like? Of course, they like names, but they like stories, right? That's a story you can sell. These two guys were in a main event. They had the opportunity. Then an eye poke ended it. Belal Muhammad then watched this guy who poked him in the eye go on to become champion and rise to these heights. And he sat on the outside and he was like, that should have been me. That should have been my opportunity. It was stolen from me by that nasty eye poke. You know what I mean? Like, there's a great story. There's history between these two. There's unfinished business. So, I get it. Look, on the night of, everybody's chilling. And Dana says, look, we don't make fights the night of fights. Like, we get into the matchmaker room on Tuesday and that's when we make it. So hopefully on Tuesday, they get in the matchmaker room and everybody goes, it kind of felt like we were leaning towards Shavkat. Yeah, but that's silly, right? We should go towards Belal, right? Yeah, we should go towards Belal. So cooler heads can still prevail here.
Yeah. It's the fight to make. Rakhmonov is going to be there. He needs to heal. He's going to be there. I mean, if you put, Leon Edwards and Belal Muhammad within the next 6 months, then that lines up to, it just lines up. Like, everything lines up, in my opinion, depending on the injury of, Shavkat. So anyways, moving on. I mean, with that, I guess we touched on the Wonderboy Thompson fight, which, I was wrong again. I basically went 0 for the card. Like, this come here. I went 0 for the card. Everything I thought was going to happen did not happen.
Hey, I agree with you. I was like, hey, Wonderboy's a tough puzzle, man. He's a tough riddle to figure out. Shavkat's like, nah, I put that puzzle together pretty quick, bro.
He closed the distance on him in the first minute of the first round. And I said, I've never seen anybody do that to Wonderboy.
I'm telling you, man, it was impressive to watch because Wonderboy is, man, his movement, he's tough. Shavkat made us both look kind of foolish in that. I lean towards Shavkat, but I was like, look, Wonderboy's a live dog, and he certainly didn't look that way.
Yeah. No, he did not. But let's get to one that we were both wrong on. I don't think we were wrong on. We were leaning towards Tony. Maybe it was sentimental value. Maybe it was like the way that, Jared Gordon made Paddy look. But Tony comes out. He didn't offer anything in this fight. Like if we're just going to be honest, he didn't offer anything. He showed that he is still damn durable. That's maybe what he showed, but let's get to after the fight, right? After the fight, I think Paddy did the right thing, and he's like, this is a legend. I've been watching him. Paddy did the right things, but in the post-fight, you were there. Dana White says that he wants Tony to retire. Good, bad, or indifferent on that?
Oh, this one's so hard for me, man, because I'm an unabashed Tony Ferguson fan, man. I've been covering his career for over a decade, and I like the guy, man. I really, really do, and I think he is a legend. I think he's one of the most unique guys, one of the most unique personalities, one of the most unique fighters. I mean, everything that he does is so interesting, intriguing. And so I'm not the kind of guy that says you should retire, right? Because you have to remember what that means. It's like, not only is it taking away somebody's financial livelihood, right? Like, that's how they support their family, but it's also kind of who they are as a person, right? I mean, he's been an athletic competitor his whole life, and he's been in the spotlight his whole life, and it's hard to replace that. So I'm not one to encourage, hey man, you need to walk away, but it is 7 straight losses. There's no denying that fact. It's clear that he's not a championship contender anymore. And it's also the other thing, and you said it, we said, hey, the great thing about Tony Ferguson is he's going to come out and do something wild. He really didn't do anything wild. He really didn't do Tony Ferguson. And the one that really puzzled me was in the 3rd round. He had top position briefly, right? The first round, he was knocked down. The second round, he slipped. But both times he was working from his back. The 3rd round, he had an opportunity to work from top position, and he backed away. And he said, yeah, come on, you stand up. And I'm like, what? Like, this is your opportunity to win the fight. Use top position. We've already seen what's happening on this. So, you question what the game plan was and what the execution was as well. So, man, if he wants to continue competing, I mean, it wasn't a fight where he took so much damage where I'm like, man, look, your health and safety is on the line. But I do think, unfortunately, it'll have to come with the realization that you're no longer at that championship caliber, of a fighter. And it's hard for me to say that because I like Tony Ferguson a lot, man, as a person and as a fighter. I won't say that he has to walk away, but I will say that if he wants to, there's nothing else really for him to prove. And maybe with the rise of grappling and the opportunities like that, maybe some chances for him still to scratch that itch to compete and to put some money in his pocket on the grappling scene or something along those lines. Or maybe it's just, he takes fights that he understands aren't necessarily going to put him into the rankings. But yeah, 7 straight losses, it's kind of hard to argue with.
It is. And, here's where I fall with Tony Ferguson. I personally think it's time to hang him up. And not that I'm necessarily pushing for it, but from a health and safety standpoint, I am kind of pushing for it, right?
Yeah.
Listen, it's undeniable that Justin Gaethje changed him, in my opinion. Yeah. That fight, he took so much damage. He has not won a fight since. He has had good moments in some fights since, but he wasn't going to win those fights ever since. We see it. And here's the tell to me. What made Tony, right, back in those just Anthony Pettis war and like just on the come up Anthony Pettis, where it's like, and honestly, when Styles made fights, I always said that when it was the top 3 of Conor, Tony, and Khabib, I always said Tony beats Khabib, Khabib beats Conor, Conor beats Tony. Like, I just thought Tony had that style and that weird, quirky jiu-jitsu. Now, it could have been crazy. Looking back, I don't maybe think, but at the time, I did. But here's the reason. And this is what Tony doesn't have, and I really think that Justin Gaethje changed. The unorthodoxness of Tony. He was coming out, switching stance, throwing these elbows, doing these weird things like ducking into, and now it just seemed like it was just a robotic version of that all the time. And I can date this back to the Justin Gaethje fight. That changed him. And from that standpoint, I don't want to see Tony Ferguson. He's had well-documented some episodes too, right? And I don't want to see him take any more punches because I ride with El Kukui, man. I don't want to see him hurt. I don't want to see his legacy tarnished. Truth be told, I think he is so lovable that his legacy is not tarnished, right? I want to see him go out, and I want to see him, get on that grappling scene. Hey, Cage, Fury grappling. Get this guy some stupid fights, all right?
Hey, I know some guys over there. I'll put in a good word, but I agree. But I'll tell you what, man, it was cool to see in the building on Saturday night, even though Paddy is like this, fast rising star and, he's got a lot of enthusiasm. The crowd was so behind Tony Ferguson. His walkout music came on and everybody got live and, the response for him when he was on the screen. I mean, it was cool. So it was cool. He is so loved. And that's why it's hard to talk about, man, because he is so loved. I think we all want nothing but the best for him, man. So, it's up to him for sure. And again, hopefully nothing but better days ahead for him because I'm like you, man. I ride with El Kui. I'm a Tony Ferguson fan.
All righty. Did Paddy do anything to improve his stock? Paddy didn't finish Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson has been finished in his past 3 fights. Paddy did not finish him. He came out, new look, cornrows, cool. I dig it. But did he do anything to help his cause?
I'll say this. I liked the attitude that he carried, as you said, right? Like they got a little fiery ahead of time, but I love the fact that after the fight that Paddy stood there and was like, that man's a legend, give it up for him. So in terms of the fight itself, not necessarily, because I think, look, a lot of people said it's a no-win situation, right? It's a lose-lose. Like if you destroy Tony Ferguson, then you beat up a washed-up Tony Ferguson. What does that mean? If you do what he did, which is score a pretty convincing decision win, then people go like, bro, you couldn't even finish Tony Ferguson. What's up with that? So it was a lose-lose. And I think, Paddy picked up a win. He got a win bonus. He's got twin kids on the way. And so he's looking forward to supporting that family. But I will say, I think I know, crazy. I got one and that's enough, man. Twins. Oh my goodness. It's I don't think in terms of what happened in the cage, he did anything to really advance himself. I think that was going to be a tough ask either way. But I will say, because I think a lot of people after the Jared Gordon fight were kind of like jumping off the bandwagon and they didn't like the attitude. They didn't like, the fact that he's like, yeah, I clearly won that when a lot of us thought he didn't, or at the very least, we thought it was a very close fight. Mm-hmm. I think the way Paddy conducted himself after the fight, the way he conducted himself in his interview afterwards, it was all great. So I don't necessarily think in terms of what happened in the cage, he advanced his career, but I do think some people were like, okay, maybe I wasn't so sure about this kid. And I kind of like this kid now. He's growing on me a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know where either guy goes from here. I don't really know what the next step up is for Paddy. But hey, listen, he looked good, so let's give him his shine where shine due. He looked good. We're kind of running short on time today. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit shorter of an episode, but 2 things we do need to touch on really quick. Bryce Mitchell, one of the scariest knockouts I've seen in a long time. Even got flatlined, toes curled, and started having a seizure. What was that like Cageside, and how scary was it?
Very scary. Not the least of the fact that obviously, you and I both know Bryce Mitchell. I know you have he comes from the area, right? So, I mean, like we got an affinity for the guy. So it's scary, but I mean, it wouldn't matter who the person was in there. The way the physical body reacted was scary. I mean, so much so that Dana White came into the cage just to make sure everything was okay. So that tells you something, right? He doesn't come in there very often. There's a whole bunch of staff and people that take care of all that, but he was worried. I will say that, afterwards, Bryce was up and he walked by press row, and sometimes we see guys walk by press row and you can tell they're still out of it. He was pretty with it and he was like, dang it, can't believe that happened, whatever. So he was at least aware, and he went and got checked out, and before the fight card was over, he had already been medically evaluated at the hospital, and so it seems like it's okay, but it was scary. Josh
Emmett came out and it was pretty clear-eyed in comments making afterwards, which was really a big sign of relief.
Yeah, 100%. Josh Emmett's a savage, by the way. I mean, that dude is an absolute monster. And you and I said going in, right? I think you and I both leaned towards Bryce because we thought, look, Bryce is the clear grappling edge in this fight. But if that Josh Emmett power lands, it could be a problem. And my God, I mean, that's a knockout of the year contender, right? I mean, you just thought that it looked like a video game, right? The way it was just one shot and the way the body fell.
Like crumbled down. It wasn't even like over or back. It was just like you unplugged the television, and he just crumbled down. That's what was so scary about it.
Scary, and then like you said, and then the way the body reacted afterwards, and I mean it was scary, but it seems like he's okay. Obviously, that's going to be a lengthy no contact type suspension. Like, hey man, just let the brain heal for a little bit. Don't get back out there. Credit to Bryce for stepping in on short notice and taking that opportunity against a dangerous opponent. Didn't work out for him, but he's a warrior and
a big step up in competition. Let's be honest.
Huge,
you know what I mean?
Huge.
Like he's fought some really, really good guys, Ilia Topuria, but which kind of outclassed him. But Emmett just off a title challenge, so he's clearly top 5 in that division. To be getting that title challenge. So I don't know. Like it's unfortunate that it happened. Emmett stamps himself at a guy who's still at the top of the division. Bryce Mitchell, I don't know what we read of this. He claims it to be a bad game plan. I tend to agree with him because even if you look at his last fight, he didn't want to stand, and he kind of went in there and just dove for takedowns. He didn't do this, and he was like, I'm going to let him come to me. I'm going to catch him, and I'm going to duck under in an exchange and get the takedown. And that never happened. He usually When he wants a takedown, he's moving forward and he's going to get it. He wasn't moving forward against Emmett. So,
yeah, I think, probably a product of, like I said, stepping in on short notice and not having a really fully fleshed out game plan, not having a real just like, hey, man, we'll let him come to us and we'll make it happen from there. You know what I mean? And it's a fight, right? I mean, that's the crazy thing about this sport. It's a fight. Anything can happen. You know, I doubt you thought, well, we'll let ourselves get hit with a big right hand and then we'll go from there, you know? So yeah, probably just probably not. So just didn't fully flesh it out a little bit. But again, it was just, man, if Emmett touches you, you can go out, right, man. Right. That dude packs power. It was crazy, man. He walked by press row, was kind of smiling. He just like kind of pointed to his right hand as he walked. I was like, yeah, don't touch me with that, dude. That's dangerous.
And out of everything that night, what has lingered on the most is the headlines that Dricus and Sean Strickland came up with. You're sitting there. Did you see it in real time?
Yeah. So what happened was, it was right after the Paddy Pimblett fight. Paddy's walking by press row, and always, if anybody ever sees my social media, like I always film the guys as they're walking by, because sometimes they'll have a little message, or they'll see me and they'll want to send out a little something for social media. Sometimes it's just to see the team and the celebration. So I was filming that, and then as Paddy walks by, we see, because it's in that direction over there on this side, where all the guest fighters and stuff are seated at, we see a big commotion. And it was right after we had seen, the stuff on screen that you guys saw at home, where they showed Dricus, they showed Sean, and then Sean turns around. And so we weren't sure what exactly was happening, but it did seem like that's right where those guys were standing, right? And it's like, oh, it has to. And then we looked up and you could see like, oh yeah, it's definitely them going at it. And so we didn't get to see it all happen in real time, but we saw it kind of as it was unfolding. And it was only afterwards when I saw the video. We're like, how crazy is that Sean looks at Gilbert Burns' children and is like, hey, do you mind stepping aside for a little bit? And then as soon as they move, he jumps on top of it.
Just launching.
It's crazy. So I was talking about this weekend, like, it's crazy because make no doubt about it, we are going to see that film over and over and over in the build up to that fight, because it just makes it even more heat, right? And so a lot of people say like, oh, Dana must love that. The UFC must love that. And Dana will tell you afterwards. It was pretty funny, by the way. I don't know if you saw, I asked Dana and he was like, hey, what kind of a-hole puts those two guys together? And he was like, this a-hole right here. He's like, I do the seating chart. I'm an idiot and didn't realize I put them so close together. But people say like, oh, they love that. Dude, they hate that, because that could have gotten real ugly real quick. I was talking to my wife about this. Like, can you imagine, like, even though Sean asked Gilbert Burns' children to move, what if something had happened and like Gilbert Burns' children had gotten hit or something got thrown at him, and then Gilbert jumps in and, oh, by the way, guess who was standing right there next to him? Justin Gaethje was there. Kamaru Usman was there. Brendan Allen was there. Ali Abdelaziz was there. Yeah. Can you imagine if can you imagine they all start going, and there's chairs and there's, I don't
just
care.
Like the Peanuts fight.
Oh, yeah, exactly, right. Imagine, T-Mobile security or Metro trying to get in there and pull those guys
good
apart.
Luck.
Good luck. Have fun with that. It could have gotten nasty real quick. Fortunately, it didn't get nasty, and they got pulled apart. And I think it was reported that Sean got kicked out. He didn't get kicked out. I think they asked him to go to the back and calm down, and he said, you know what, I'm out of here. I don't care. I'm leaving. So, yeah, we're going to see that footage. We're lucky it didn't get as bad as couldn't, but it just goes to show you, man. And I think it's something to remember too. And it kind of leans into the whole like Leon Edwards, Colby Covington thing, is that like, look, man, trash talk is trash talk, and promoting fights is promoting fights. But at the end of the day, man, if you say some stuff, you're going to have to live up to that stuff if you see that person in the street. And Sean Strickland is one of those
alpha males.
Oh, every one of them, every last one of them, man. So, yeah, it was, look, do I like it? Yeah, I like it. Could it have been bad where I don't like it? Could have been really bad. You know what I mean? It could have gotten really, really bad. Man, immediately I started thinking about like when John Jones and Daniel Cormier brawled in the MGM Grand Lobby, right? And like, there were some people that weren't really involved that got hurt in that. You know what I mean? There was some UFC staff that got trampled. There was a reporter that got hit in the head with a shoe. There's all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? So that stuff can get bad. So as much as we as fans, like, we kind of like rub our hands together and go, ooh, that was awesome. And it is. It can also get really bad. Really, I know. Look, even me, I'm like, oh, that fight's gonna be even better. But it borders. You have to be careful with that stuff, because it can turn real fast, and you can have some real problems And look, and just dumb stuff like Sean jumps over a chair. Can you imagine? I mean, those are like those folding chairs, right? Like you're around them all the time in the NBA. Like, can you imagine somebody's like foot landed funny in one of those folding chairs and twisted an ankle, or somebody gets hit and there's a cut over the? I mean, what if we lose the fight on a month's notice because of the stupid brawl? You know what I mean? So bad things can happen. So it's a weird thing because on the one hand, it's cool as hell and we like it. On the other hand, it can get bad really fast, and so they don't like those things to happen. But
I don't know if you've seen this, but they had to. There's been little reports here and there that Strickland actually got KO'd.
There?
Yeah. Have you seen it?
No.
So there's like little ones, like because they ended up having to pick him up off the ground.
Whoa. Okay. So listen, I've been high rolling here at the Fontainebleau all since Sunday. You know what I mean?
You're on fringe little sites. Like I haven't seen like Junkie or Underground or Sure Dog like report it, but I have seen it because, and I don't know, I don't think so. I think it was just the way they pulled them apart. But there was a look to it. Now I didn't see Dricus really throw even any punches. I just saw Strickland come on top and start kind of Donkey Kong punching down.
Yeah.
But I did see something where Strickland was being either the way he got pulled off and he fell onto the ground or whatever. They were lifting him up off the ground before then he walked out. But I saw one Twitter and it was from an MMA site, I don't know, or an MMA reporter saying, did Strickland get knocked out in all of this? ? Take a look into it. Maybe we'll touch on it coming up.
I'll look at that. I'll have to look at that. That's crazy.
So anyways, well, that's about all we got for this week. Leon Edwards looked spectacular. Tony Ferguson, time to hang it up. Only he will be the one. Pantoja, another well-rounded victory. And Dricus, Sean, thanks for giving us a lot of clips moving forward.
It's going to be a great build. I'll say, by the way, if for whatever reason you didn't catch it, and you got some time, because look, we don't have UFC for a month, right? So if you missed it, man, go check out that Arena Aldana Carol Hossa fight, man. What a fight of the night! Yeah. My goodness, that was incredible. That was a fight I wasn't sure how it was going to play out, man. They went toe to toe from start to finish. It was awesome. Some great performances, man. Cody Garbrandt looked great. Ariane Lipsky looked great. Andre Feely looked amazing. I mean, there was as much as obviously, and you nailed it. I mean, the talk for the next couple of weeks is going to be centered around Colby Covington. There were some really nice performances on the undercard of this fight.
And with that, we are going to hang it up. Not exactly planned, but next Monday when these usually drop is Christmas Day. The following Monday is New Year's Eve. So we are going to try in at some point in there. We're going to try and get in a year-end recap. So be on the lookout. I'm sure John Morgan will tweet about it or X about it, whatever it is about it, because he'll always have a lot more followers than my 168 now. Thank you for those last couple. But anyway, so be on the lookout for that. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.